Hello class, welcome back. This is Dr. Gu Zhenzhou. In the last two sessions, we learned about the budget line and indifference curves. We applied the budget equations to describe the budget constraints and rearranged the equation. Then we got relative price and real income. A relative price is the price of one good divided by the price of another good, and is also the magnitude of the indifference curve. It is then the law inherent consumer's preference. In our second session of this chapter, we mentioned the MRS, the marginal rate of substitution. It measures the rates at which a person is willing to give up good Y to get additional units of good X, while at the same time remaining indifferent. It is then the reality of consumer's preference. Now let's consider what is consumer's best affordable choice. The consumer will select his or her best affordable point if the point is, first, on the budget line, second, on the highest attainable indifference curve, third, as a marginal rate of substitution between the two goods equal to the relative price of the two goods. Why? The first criterion reviews it's affordable. The second criterion answers it is the best. And the last is whenever the inherent preference equals to the reality rule. Back to the example of Lisa's consumption of movie and soda. As shown in the graph, the best affordable point is C for Lisa, which meets all three criteria as we discussed. All points F, C, and H are on the same budget line, which are all affordable. That is, she can either afford to consume more soda and see fewer movies at point F, or she can afford to see more movies and consume less soda at point H, or even she can afford to see just enough movies in the case of sodas at point C. However, she's indifferent between F, I, and H, lying on the lower indifference curve I0. Then she will definitely prefer C to H, F, or even I. Then how about MRS, the marginal rate of substitution at all points? At point F, Lisa's MRS is greater than the relative price. That's the price of a movie over the price of a case of soda, PM over PS, which is also the slope of the budget line. It indicates that Lisa will prefer consume more movies and less soda in order to obtain more total utility within her budget constraints. This is the moment from point F to point C in the graph, and vice versa. Then at point H, Lisa's MRS is less than the relative price. She might prefer consume more soda and less movie. It is leading the point H moving to point C. Only at point C, Lisa's MRS is equal to the relative price, the price of a movie over the price of soda. It's exactly the best affordable point. Lisa will have no incentive to switch point C to any higher indifference curve. Otherwise, she cannot afford. This tangency point between the indifference curve and the budget line is what Lisa gets her best affordable choice. In particularly, the marginal rate of substitution, the MRS, shows consumers' willingness to give up one good to get more of the other good. The relative price of the two goods shows what the consumer must give up one good to get more of the other good. When the consumer equates the marginal rates of substitution to the relative price, the consumer is just willing to give up what he or she must give up. And there are no unrealized gains from substituting one good for another. This is what we are looking for, consumers' equilibrium. Now how about we try a little further? Until now, we have MRS equal PM over PS for the best affordable choice. That's marginal rate of substitution equals price of movie over price of soda. Let's first begin with the fact that the change in total utility can be written as changes in total utility equals marginal utility of movie multiply delta quantity of movie plus marginal utility of soda multiply delta quantity of soda. If remaining the same indifference curve, then the left-hand side can be replaced with 0. Or arrange it as or again now divide both sides of this equation by Qm and also divide both sides by marginal utility of soda to obtain delta Qs over delta Qm equals minus marginal utility of movie over marginal utility of soda. Notice that the left-hand side of the last equation is the change in soda divided by the change in movies along an indifference curve, which is the slope of the indifference curve. But the magnitude of the slope of an indifference curve is the marginal rate of substitution. Then we can now have MS equals MUM over MUS equals relative price equals PM over PS. Now multiply both sides of this equation by MUS and divide both sides by PM to obtain the marginal utility theory proposition. MUM over PM equals MUS over PS. This is marginal utility per dollar equalized for all goods for utility maximizing the consumer's equilibrium choice. Well, I hope you have fun in this session and thank you for listening. Bye.